Ethan Vale had always loved quiet nights. On the far side of the colony world Erebus 9, silence meant peace. The wind outside his small research cabin made soft whistling sounds as it passed through the thin metal walls. The colony lights were dim this late, and most of the scientists had gone to sleep. Only Ethan stayed awake, his desk filled with half-finished reports, coffee mugs, and a holographic screen glowing pale blue. He was a young man, maybe 25, with messy brown hair and a look of constant curiosity in his eyes. He was studying alien communication patterns, trying to understand how sound and thought could merge. An idea inspired by the Seraphine, the only known alien species living peacefully with humans. The Seraphine were beautiful and strange, with silver skin that shimmered softly and eyes that glowed faintly like moons. Months ago, a tragedy had shaken both species. A Seraphine girl named Lyra had gone missing. She was the daughter of one of their diplomats who had come to Erebus 9 for peace talks. She vanished during a storm, and even with all the colony's technology, no one could find her. Some humans whispered that the Seraphine had staged it to blame them. Others believed something darker had taken her, something from beyond the colony's borders. Ethan didn't believe the rumors. He had seen Lyra once at a ceremony. She looked so alive and curious, watching everything with wonder. She had smiled at him, just a small smile, but he never forgot it. Since then, her image had stayed in his mind like a question that had no answer. Now, months later, the world had moved on, but Ethan hadn't. That night, he was reading through data logs from old transmissions when the screen flickered. For a moment, he thought it was just the weak connection, but then a line of text appeared across his display, letters forming slowly one by one. "Do you still remember her?" Ethan froze. His heartbeat quickened. He hadn't typed anything. The system wasn't connected to any network that could send messages like that. He quickly checked the source, but nothing appeared. The message vanished as suddenly as it came. He leaned back in his chair, trying to laugh it off. "Probably a glitch," he whispered. Outside, thunder rolled across the sky. The power lights blinked once, twice, and then went dark. The room fell into shadow. Ethan stood up, grabbed a flashlight, and moved toward the generator switch. He had just opened the control panel when he heard it, a soft, light tap-tap on the window. He froze again. The cabin was in the middle of the research zone. No one should be out there at this hour, especially during a storm. Slowly, he turned the light toward the sound. At first, he saw nothing but rain and fog sliding down the glass. Then a faint glow appeared like silver mist moving behind the window. It took shape, a figure standing outside. The light revealed a face, Lyra. Her eyes glowed softly in the dark, and her silver skin reflected the lightning. She looked thinner, tired, and frightened. For a second, Ethan couldn't move or breathe. It was impossible. She had been missing for months. Everyone said she was gone. Then she spoke, her voice muffled by the storm. "Ethan Vale." She said his name. The sound of it made his heart race. He stumbled toward the door and opened it. A rush of cold rain hit him, and Lyra almost fell into his arms. She was shaking, her body cold and weak. Her clothes were torn, and faint light pulsed from the lines along her arms, the Seraphine equivalent of veins. Ethan quickly brought her inside and closed the door. He placed her on the couch and covered her with his old jacket. She looked at him with tired eyes that still glowed faintly. "Lyra," he said softly. "It's really you?" She nodded weakly. Her voice trembled as she spoke. "I had nowhere else to go. They're coming. For both of us." Then her eyes rolled back and she fainted. Ethan stood frozen, his mind spinning. Who were they? What had happened to her? He checked her pulse, steady but weak. She was alive. He ran to the cabinet, pulled out his medical kit, and began scanning her. The scanner beeped and showed strange readings. Radiation traces, energy fluctuations, even minor burns along her temples as if she had been exposed to high frequencies. "How long have you been running?" He whispered, though she couldn't hear him. Outside, lightning flashed again, and for a second he thought he saw shadows moving near the tree line, shapes too tall and too thin to be human. But when he blinked, they were gone. He turned back to Lyra. Her skin flickered faintly with light, pulsing in rhythm with his generator. She began to whisper in her sleep, fragments of Seraphine words mixed with English. He only caught parts of it. Signal. Beneath the ground. Hidden truth. Ethan's curiosity burned stronger than his fear. Whatever she had escaped from, it wasn't random. Something deeper was happening, something that had been buried since before she disappeared. He decided to keep her hidden. The colony authorities wouldn't understand, and if she was being hunted, reporting her would put her in more danger. He carried her to his underground workshop, a small space filled with old communication equipment and power cells. It was soundproof and off-grid. He placed her gently on a cot and covered her with a thermal blanket. Then he sat nearby watching her breathe, the rhythmic light from her skin reflecting on the metal walls. Ethan felt a strange mix of fear, awe, and responsibility. The missing alien girl, the one the whole colony had searched for, was in his room, whispering his name. He tried to rest, but every time he closed his eyes, he saw that message on his screen again. Do you still remember her? Morning came slowly, gray light seeping through the cracks of the window. Lyra stirred, her eyes opening halfway. Ethan quickly moved closer. Don't be afraid, he said gently. You're safe here. She blinked, disoriented. Her gaze wandered across the room before settling on him. Ethan, you helped me, he smiled slightly. Of course. You need rest. Then we can talk about what happened. She tried to sit up, but her body trembled. No time. They will trace the signal. They always do. Who? He asked. But before she could answer, a faint sound came from the surface, a humming noise, mechanical, rhythmic. Ethan looked up. It was the sound of a drone patrol sweeping the area. Lyra's glow dimmed. She whispered urgently, You must hide me. Ethan moved fast. He activated the magnetic dampeners around his workshop. It would block most sensors. The noise outside passed overhead, then faded into the distance. When he returned, Lyra was staring at the ceiling, tears of light forming at the corners of her eyes. They think I'm dead, she said softly, but I saw what they tried to bury. The signal. It changes everything. Ethan didn't understand yet, but he felt the truth in her voice. Something enormous was hidden beneath the surface of Erebus 9. Something powerful enough to make both humans and Seraphine afraid. He sat beside her and spoke quietly. Whatever it is, you're not alone now. We'll find the truth together. Lyra looked at him, and for the first time she smiled, faint but real. Her hand glowed slightly as she reached toward him. You don't know what that promise means, she whispered. Ethan didn't. Not yet. But as thunder rolled again outside and the lights flickered, he knew one thing for certain. The world had changed the moment Lyra whispered his name. The morning air on Erebus 9 was cold and sharp. Gray clouds hung low over the colony domes, and the metal towers hummed faintly with power. Deep underground in Ethan's secret workshop, the silence felt heavier than usual. The faint glow from Lyra's skin cast soft light on the walls, and the machines around her pulsed slowly, responding to her strange energy. Ethan sat across from her, staring at his holographic monitor. It displayed the readings from last night. Radiation spikes, unknown energy frequencies, and faint traces of an encrypted transmission. None of it made sense. Lyra sat quietly, her silver eyes calm but distant. She looked stronger now, though her movements were slow and careful. Every now and then she would close her eyes and the air around her would shimmer slightly, like heat waves. Can you tell me what happened? Ethan finally asked. She looked up, her voice soft but steady. After the peace meeting, my father found something. A signal buried under this world's surface. It wasn't human. It wasn't Seraphine, it was older. Ethan leaned forward. Older? How old? Lyra hesitated. Older than any of our histories. When he tried to show it to the council, they silenced him. They said it was dangerous, forbidden knowledge. But he believed the truth could bring us together. Her voice trembled slightly. Then they came for us. The ones who didn't want peace. Who? Ethan asked. Not just Seraphine, she whispered. Some humans too. They work together now, in secret. They want the signal for themselves. Ethan's mind raced. If she was right, this wasn't just a political problem. It was something much deeper. Something that could change both species. What does the signal do? He asked. Lyra closed her eyes again, searching for words. It speaks in patterns. When decoded, it changes energy, life energy. It can reshape living cells. My people think it can join minds across species, but others believe it's a weapon. Ethan's eyes widened. A signal that can change DNA? Lyra nodded slowly. Yes. My father believed it was made by the architects, ancient beings who created life long ago. He said they wanted to unite us, not destroy us. The air in the workshop felt colder. Ethan rubbed his temples, trying to make sense of it. So that's why they silenced him, he said quietly. They were afraid. Lyra looked at him with sadness. Afraid of what we could become if we learned the truth. Hours passed as they worked together, trying to trace the origin of the signal. Ethan connected his scanners to an old research satellite feed, while Lyra guided him through seraphine symbols and frequency codes. Her knowledge was beyond human science. She could feel energy patterns like music. Every time she reached toward the monitor, faint ripples of light moved through the air. It was beautiful, almost like magic. Ethan couldn't help but watch her in silence. Even though she wasn't human, there was something deeply human about her. Her fear, her hope, her determination. Suddenly, the screen flashed red. Signal found. Coordinates detected. Ethan leaned closer. That's it, he whispered. It's under the western ridge near the old mining tunnels. Lyra nodded. That's where I escaped from. You were being held there? Yes, she said softly. They used machines to drain my energy. They wanted to force the signal through me, but I broke free before they could finish. Ethan's jaw tightened. We need to go there. Lyra looked uncertain. It's dangerous. If they detect us, then we'll stay hidden, Ethan said firmly. But we need proof. If we can show the colony what's really there, they'll have to listen. Lyra gave a small smile. You sound like my father. He smiled back. Then he must have been a good man. For the first time she laughed, and a soft musical sound that filled the small room. It was the first real warmth Ethan had felt in weeks. That night the storm returned. The wind howled outside and thunder rolled across the valley. Ethan packed 2 energy cells, his scanner, and a small pulse pistol. Standard colony gear. Lyra wrapped herself in a dark cloak to hide her light. They moved through the rain quietly, heading toward the western ridge. The landscape was rough and metallic, with jagged rocks and glowing veins of minerals beneath the surface. In the distance, the colony lights flickered like dying stars. Lyra walked beside him, her step silent, her gaze alert. The tunnels are ahead, she said softly. Beyond that ridge. As they climbed, Ethan's scanner beeped faintly. Radiation's rising, he said. Something's active down there. When they reached the ridge, they found the entrance in an old mining shaft, sealed long ago. But the seal had been broken recently. The air that came from inside was cold and electric, filled with a faint humming sound. Lyra touched the wall and closed her eyes. It's calling, she whispered. The signal is alive, Ethan frowned. Alive? It feels us, she said. It knows we're here. Before he could answer, a sound echoed behind them, metallic footsteps. Drones. Ethan grabbed her hand. Run! They rushed into the tunnel just as lights appeared at the entrance. The narrow path twisted downward, the walls glowing faintly blue. The deeper they went, the louder the hum became, like a heartbeat beneath the ground. After several minutes, they reached a wide cavern filled with old machinery. In the center stood a tall crystal pillar, glowing with shifting light. It pulsed in rhythm with Lyra's energy, as if recognizing her. Ethan stared in awe. This is it, he breathed. The source. Lyra stepped closer. It's waiting for activation. My father said only harmony can unlock it. Human logic and seraphine energy together. Ethan looked confused. Harmony, how? She turned to him, her expression calm but serious. Join your mind with mine. Ethan hesitated. I don't know how. Lyra smiled faintly. Don't think. Just feel. She reached out, her glowing hand resting gently on his forehead. A rush of warmth spread through him. His thoughts blurred, and suddenly he saw flashes. Stars being born, worlds forming, ancient cities filled with light. He felt her emotions, her memories, her pain. For a moment he understood everything. The crystal responded, growing brighter until the whole chamber shone like daylight. Symbols appeared on its surface, forming a spiral pattern. Then the light dimmed, and the sound of metal footsteps echoed again. The drones had found them. Ethan pulled back, dizzy but alert. We have to go. Lyra nodded, her energy dimming again. Together they ran through another tunnel, following the map on Ethan's scanner. Behind them the crystal pulsed once more, sending a faint signal upward. A beacon. Outside the mine, rain poured harder. They stumbled into the open just as lightning cracked across the sky. In the distance, colony lights were flashing red when an alert had gone out. Lyra gasped. They're tracking the activation. We must hide. Ethan looked at her. Not hide. We need to warn someone who'll believe us. Who? She asked. Professor Halden, Ethan said. He's one of the few who still believes in peace. If we can show him this data, maybe we can stop whatever's coming. Lyra hesitated, then nodded. Then we go to him. They started running through the storm, lightning illuminating the path ahead. Behind them, far across the ridge, the crystal continued to pulse beneath the ground, sending its message deeper into the planet. And somewhere, in a hidden control room inside the colony, a figure watched their every move through a screen filled with static. They've awakened it, the figure said quietly. Prepare the containment units. We can't let the signal spread. By the time Ethan and Lyra reached the outskirts of the colony, dawn was breaking. The storm had passed, but the air felt strange, charged, alive, almost watching. Ethan looked toward the rising sun. Whatever this signal is, he said softly, it's not done with us yet. Lyra stood beside him, her eyes glowing faintly gold. No, she whispered. It's only beginning. The sun rose over Erebus 9, casting long, pale shadows across the colony. The storm had passed, leaving the air crisp and strange, almost electric. Ethan and Lyra stood on the ridge overlooking the research colony. Their clothes were soaked and exhaustion weighed on them, but the glow from Lyra's skin reminded Ethan that they had survived, and that the real challenge was only beginning. Professor Halden will believe us, Ethan said, tightening the strap on his backpack. He always said we can't ignore evidence just because it's uncomfortable. Lyra nodded, her silver hair sticking to her damp face. Then we go. But we must move carefully. They are still watching. They want the signal contained, or destroyed. Together, they navigated the winding paths toward the colony's main research facility. Every shadow seemed alive, and every gust of wind felt like it carried whispers. Ethan's mind raced. He had spent nights dreaming of understanding the universe, of finding signs of life beyond humanity. But he had never imagined he would hold the key to something this ancient and powerful, something that could reshape all life. When they arrived at Professor Halden's lab, the older scientist looked up in surprise. His graying hair and thick glasses made him appear frail, but his eyes shone with keen intelligence. Ethan, he asked, standing quickly. Lyra, what are you doing here? You were missing. Ethan took a deep breath. Professor, you have to see this. Lyra found something under Erebus 9, something important. And people are trying to stop it, and us. Halden's eyes widened. The signal? Lyra stepped forward. It's real. It can change energy, life, DNA. It was designed by ancient beings. They call them the architects. Halden's face went pale. I feared this day would come. Few believe in the architects. Humanity has always dismissed them as myth. But if Lyra is telling the truth, then we are part of something far larger than we ever imagined. Ethan quickly set up his scanner, showing Halden the data they had collected from the tunnels. Energy readings, encrypted patterns and traces of a consciousness interacting with life on a cellular level. The older man studied the holograms carefully, his hands trembling slightly. This is incredible, he said finally. You two have stumbled upon the proof of the architect's work. Humanity was never alone. We were designed, guided to evolve alongside another species. The Seraphine, and the signal, it's a bridge, a key to that connection. Lyra's glow brightened slightly as if encouraged by Halden's words. They want to control it, she whispered. The humans in Seraphine who fear the truth. They will use it as a weapon if they can. Ethan's jaw tightened. Then we stop them. We show the colony what's really happening. They need to know the truth. Halden nodded. I will help you. But first, we must return to the tunnels. The signal won't wait. It's alive and it senses us. The three of them moved through the colony's hidden paths, reaching the entrance to the mining tunnels. The faint hum of the signal was stronger than ever, vibrating through the ground beneath their feet. The deeper they went, the brighter Lyra's skin glowed, her energy resonating with the crystal pillar they had seen before. When they arrived at the cavern, the crystal pulsed with a vibrant intensity, casting rainbow-like patterns across the walls. It seemed to recognize them instantly, as if welcoming its creators. Lyra stepped forward, placing her hand on the crystal. It's responding, she said softly. It wants harmony, human and seraphine energy together. Ethan reached out, placing his hand on hers. A warmth spread through him, then exploded into a vision. Galaxies spinning into existence, planets forming, ancient beings shaping life. He felt the architect's intentions. Not control, not domination, but connection, unity, and balance. Halden gasped. They designed both humans and Seraphine to understand each other, to unite life in the universe. That's the purpose of the signal. The crystal pulsed brighter, then projected an image of Lyra's father speaking directly to them. The truth must not be hidden. The architects intended for us to learn, to grow together. Fear and secrecy will destroy us. You must carry this knowledge. Suddenly, a sound echoed from the tunnels behind them. Heavy footsteps, mechanical hums, and distant voices. The drones were back. Lyra stepped away from the crystal, her hand still glowing. They won't let us leave easily. We must protect the signal until the colony understands its importance. Ethan nodded, gripping his pulse pistol. We fight if we must. The drones entered the cavern, their metal bodies reflecting the crystal's light. But as they approached, the crystal released a surge of energy. The machine stopped, frozen in place. A wave of warmth spread across the cavern, disabling their systems temporarily. Halden looked amazed. It's protecting itself. It responds to life, to understanding. Lyra stepped closer to Ethan. We have to show them, show both humans and Seraphine, that fear is not the answer. Harmony is. Ethan placed his hand on the crystal again. This time the images became clearer, not just creation, but the future. He saw humans and Seraphine working side by side, exploring new worlds, building cities on distant planets, sharing knowledge. It was a vision of peace, a promise of unity. We can do this, Ethan said, turning to Halden. We can convince them, Lyra nodded. But first, we must survive the ones who do not want this truth to be known. The drones began moving again, but Ethan had an idea. Using the crystal's energy, he modified his scanner to emit a signal that would temporarily disable all machinery within a large radius. The drones shut down instantly, dropping to the cavern floor. Halden clapped his hands. Ingenious. You've learned from the signal already. Lyra looked at Ethan, her glowing eyes shining. You were meant to find me, she whispered. And to understand this. Humanity is ready, and if they choose to be. Ethan smiled. Then let's make sure they do. By the time they emerged from the tunnels, the colony was awake, buzzing with alarm and curiosity. Ethan and Lyra moved quickly, bringing Halden with them. They showed the data, the crystal, and the vision of unity. Some humans and Seraphine were skeptical, but most were awestruck. Colonial leaders and scientists gathered in the main hall, watching as the signal pulsed gently from Lyra's presence, demonstrating harmony rather than fear. For the first time in months, humans and Seraphine stood together, listening, learning, and understanding. The secret that had caused fear and division was now a symbol of hope. The crystal, protected by Lyra's energy and Ethan's courage, had opened the door to a new era, one where life could cooperate rather than compete. As night fell over Erebus 9, Ethan and Lyra stood side by side, watching the stars. The wind whispered across the domes, and in the distance the soft hum of the crystal continued beneath the planet's crust. Lyra turned to Ethan, her silver hair glowing faintly. The architects left us a choice. We can learn from them, or we can ignore them. Ethan smiled. We choose to learn together, she nodded. Together. Above them, the stars seemed brighter, as if acknowledging the decision. For the first time, humanity realized that strength was not in dominance but in connection, and the architect's vision, a universe of understanding and unity, had a chance to become real. Ethan looked at Lyra once more. We did it. We survived. And now we have a future, Lyra smiled softly. And it begins tonight. The crystal's glow pulsed one last time, then settled into a gentle, steady light, a beacon of hope for both humans and Seraphine. The world beneath the stars would never be the same again.